So, welcome to Webinar Wednesday, and the first one in October, the first of what we might call our winter season, Alistair.
Our winter Webinar Wednesdays, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Or definitely a wet and windy Webinar Wednesdays some of the times.
Yeah.
It's been a bit damp across Scotland.
Yeah. This is it now, I think, isn't it? This is it. This is our what we've got to look forward to for the next few months, probably.
Yes,
Anyway, welcome to everyone who joined us today. Today's guests are Heather Calvo and William from Neighbourhood Networks.
Yeah, William Miller. Yep, cool.
And we're hoping they're going to join us about 11:15, aren't we? Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, indeed.
Normal.
Indeed.
And if anyone has any comments or any questions they want to ask as we talk this morning, please send those in to us, and we will try and respond to them as we go through whatever it is we end up talking about today. We'll try and respond to any questions or any things that you ask us about. So what's been happening this week, Alistair?
Well, this week it's been another packed week of stuff. We've had Werby and Danielle, haven't we? Talking about
Tuesday talk.
Yeah, that was really good. So that was World Cerebral Palsy Day.
Yeah. Yep. What else have you been doing? What else have you been working on this week?
What else I've been working on this week? So we've been looking at we've got the Feel Good Friday stuff. Last week's one, we did a bit more on the SDS. So what would it take? And also we're starting to look at this idea outside of just self-directed support. Just what does it take for nobody to be left behind? All the changes and things with all the the constantly changing rules with the coronavirus and stuff. Some people are feeling a bit like people are saying what they can't do rather than what they can do. And so we're trying to make a list, I think, on this Friday about how do we make sure that nobody gets left behind. And I guess that's a link to probably what we're going to look a bit later on is the Scottish Human Rights Commission report.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you see that thing that CCPS, Coalition of Care and Sport in Scotland, providers in Scotland, put out as well, which was looking for big ideas around.
Big ideas, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Big ideas about one thing you would say to, I think it was to the First Minister, or it might have been to the Minister for Social Care and Sport and so on. Like one thing that if you had one thing you wanted to say about care and support, what is it that you would say? So they were looking for anyone really to give them their big ideas about that. So that again, that may be something that Feel Good Friday people could have a think about. If you haven't seen that, send you on a link to that little bit of because they're just looking for anybody to send in their ideas around that.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing that we're thinking about is that more exciting social lives and holidays, that idea about people being connected when, I mean, obviously we're waiting with bated breath for today's announcement as to what level of lockdown we've got next. But just that sense that we are starting to plan towards making things easier for people to connect when we're allowed to. Because again, that was one of the things that we concentrated on quite a lot in last week's Feel Good Friday. Was a couple of the folk were saying, "Look, I'm really confused. What are you allowed to do again? This week, what are we allowed to do?" And it feels so, so fluid. Because I know that they'd pulled one of the videos because it was a bit too black and white about one of the issues, which was it. I thought that the actual video itself, other than that part of it, was quite a nice little cartoony, quite quick and easy to understand. So I think it'd be good if we could have that really, really easy to read rather than going to the website, because it's a bit of a lot to chunter through, isn't it?
Certainly is, yeah. And I'm sure everybody feels this. Just as time's gone on, it's got harder and harder to really understand properly where you are and what you can do, and hasn't it? So
yes, I can go into your toilet and wash my hands, but I can't do this, and I can meet you in the pub, but I can't meet you in the house, and I can, and it's 6 here, but it's 20 there, and it's,
Yeah. Interestingly, there was a thing on about New Zealand, wasn't there? I heard something on the radio about New Zealand today, and just about how Auckland has come out from their the limits that they had on, so the whole of New Zealand now is almost completely back to normal, which is amazing, really, isn't it? So this is what we've got to look forward to. Anyway, this is what eventually we've got to look forward to.
Yes, for moving to New Zealand.
No, we'd have to. You couldn't get there anyway. You'd have to self-isolate and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think you could even go, can you? Unless you are a New Zealand resident, I don't think. Which is partly how they've managed to keep it like that. So.
Oh well. Yeah. On that happy note.
Yeah.
What about yourself? What have you been up to, Keith?
Yeah, well, I've been doing some stuff actually, partly preparing for our board. We've got a meeting of our board of directors on tomorrow, actually. So I've been preparing for that a little bit this week. And that's obviously looking at really just a bit of a review. We're halfway through the year, really, halfway through the financial year. So we're going to do a little bit of a review about where we are and what we think the next few months, and then beyond that will bring. So been doing some preparation around about that, really. That's a bit of things that I've been doing. Thinking about some follow-up from the children's events a couple of weeks ago now. So we're just doing a couple of bits of thinking around that, following that up. So that's
we had New Roots Home last week as well.
We did, we did. Yeah.
So again, it's another reasonably big push for supporting people to be able to move back to their own areas and think about supporting people's rights. So again, it's not quite there yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
And then we've also been doing another thing we've also been involved with is sort of person-centered planning network. That's going to be launching in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. And we've got a meeting about that tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully we've been in discussions with ILF and stuff like that. So we're working towards that. So hopefully that will increase the choice and options for people round about accessing self-directed support information and well, persons that are planning, rather, I should say.
Okay.
But I made an interesting discovery as well. Yesterday. Back in the day, I was looking up some of the SHS stuff from back in the day because I obviously did my person-centered planning training back in the 90s. And do you remember that book, People, Plans and Possibilities? Yeah. Well, mine was obviously, it was a dog-eared copy. I'd lent it out to everybody and eventually lent it out and never got it back. And it was a really good book. And I was having a bit of a search on the internet, and Inclusion Press have got it as a free download.
All right.
So you can get it digitally. So if you want, it's always really good to be able to have that information about what the intention was behind some of these processes and making sure that folk don't lose sight of the values of it. So that was a wee freebie there. I thought it was worth sharing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I also this week as well, June has sent out the most recent news brief from In Control Scotland. So if you are watching this, you probably will have received a copy because June sent it out electronically around lots of people. And if you haven't got a copy and you'd like to get a copy of our most recent news brief, which is something we do every month, then just get in touch with us at the info address info@in-controlscotland.org.uk. Yeah. Okay, so the other thing that happened this week was that there was a report issued yesterday, wasn't there, by the Scottish Human Rights Commission?
There was indeed, and as if by magic, we're going to share it now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is a report which came out through the Human Rights Commission on the impact of the pandemic, and you just sharing the executive summary there, aren't you, Alistair?
I am indeed just executive because it's quite a long report, isn't it?
Yeah. It came out yesterday, and I think it's 70-something pages. So I've only managed to look at the executive summary, which is the part of the report which identifies the conclusions and also the recommendations that they make as a result of their conclusions. And probably for anyone, the things that they say aren't really a surprise, but they reinforce the findings of other research, of other surveys that we've shared or we've talked about over the last 6 months, really. And this is a survey that was carried out by the Scottish Human Rights Commission in the summer. It says in the summer of 2020. So, and they have, I think what they have is they have 12 bits in their conclusion, don't they? And then 24 recommendations of different recommendations across different areas that they identify. I think maybe the first thing I would say is that probably what this does is firmly puts the issues that are raised in the arena of people's rights. Really, I suppose it emphasizes the fact that people aren't able to achieve their universal rights because of the impact of the virus, and then the impact that that's had on the way that people can access support and or services. And the quote at the start, there's 2 quotes at the start of this document. First one says, individualized support services must be considered a right, and access to a range of individualized support services is a precondition for independent living within the community. And that's from a United Nations Committee on the Rights of Persons with a Disability report. So, and then the second quote at the start says, all the flaws in the system are being horribly exposed in a way that no one ever thought they would be. So I suppose it's exacerbating some of the things, obviously, exacerbating some of the issues that we might have already been able to identify, but have been brought forward and heightened and made more concrete in lots of people's lives by the impact of the COVID pandemic and what that's meant. And the conclusion, the first bit of the conclusion I was going to go to, actually, Alistair.
Oh, you're going to go to the conclusion.
Oh,
right?
really?
I'm trying to do the comments and everything, so let me just
I know.
Back and forth, right? Okay, yes.
I was just going to say that first bit about the conclusion. So like you said, there are lots of things in the conclusion, but the first bit is really just about a conclusion identifying that that COVID-19 has had a profound impact in the way that social care is being delivered in Scotland, leading to significant gaps in the realisation of rights for people who rely on such support, including unpaid carers. So that's really the first, and for anyone, that's clearly not a surprise. And the second one talks about the way that some people experience the complete withdrawal or removal of services.
Yes.
Particularly in the early months of the pandemic. Sometimes
that thing about proportionality in the communication, isn't it? It's just like people have just been told, no, we can't do this, but nothing else has been put in place. And it's like we say, it's not a surprise, is it?
No, it's not a surprise. No. And then we get on to several other conclusions, which are probably, because I mean, I haven't really had a chance to look at it in any depth, but obviously they're the things that immediately spring to my mind, and the idea of this being thought of in the context, obviously, of human rights, and then the recommendations that come from that.
Yes,
we say there's 24 recommendations, so it's not like there's one or two. There's a number of different recommendations.
Yes, the systematic nature of assessing needs, not making assumptions, all that kind of stuff. It's some of the stuff's just variations on what should be in place anyway.
Absolutely. And there's also a discussion within there about the impact of legislation and the removal of some of the requirements that previously were in place around about assessment and timescales, but just about involving people in that, really. The recommendations are essentially about people being involved and being part of any decisions that are taken, rather than things happening to them. So,
I mean, these 10 and 11 are quite interesting, though. This about a rights-based social care system and human rights-based budgeting. It'll be interesting to see what actually comes of those ones, won't it?
Yeah, it will. The other thing I remember from early on in the conclusions bit as well, and don't go back there, Alistair, but was just them emphasising the importance of the fact that money spent in social care support is an investment. That idea that it's an investment in people and in a fairer and more equal society. So I think it's really important. I thought that was another important point that they were stressing within the report. So
we won't go through any of the rest of it, but it's interesting and it's relevant, and hopefully it makes an actual impact on people's experience on the ground and it links in with other bits of work. Yeah,
and you can access that obviously there at that link that's shared below.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Lovely.
Okay.
Now,
so we've been joined by our guests now, Alistair?
We shall be joined by our new guests, Heather and William. So here they are.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Nice that you've been able to get on and join us. That's great. Great to see you both. Okay, so what we'll do is we will actually just go around you both in turn and we'll ask you to introduce yourself. So Heather, do you want to introduce yourself first? Just say who you are.
Yep, sure. I'm Heather Calvo and I'm the Director of Neighbourhood Networks in Scotland Limited. So it's an organisation that sets up and facilitates peer support services across the central belt of Scotland. So.
Okay, thanks. Okay, William, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm William Miller. I'm a member of Neighbourhood Networks and I've just joined the board last year. On the board for last year for the first time. Had a couple of meetings through Zoom. I've been a member for about 3.5 years now on Neighbourhood Networks.
Okay. And where do you stay, William? Whereabouts are you in Scotland?
Bellshill.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and you just joined the board, you're saying?
Yeah, last year.
All right. Okay.
I had 2 meetings on Zoom so far.
Okay. So Heather, just to go back to Heather for a minute, Heather, can you just tell us, I mean, you just started telling us a little bit about Neighbourhood Networks there. So do you want to tell us a bit more about that and then maybe about what it's felt like for the last few months with all the restrictions?
Okay, so we provide a sort of very unique model of support in our networks. And what we do is recruit a worker called a community living worker who lives in the same communities as a group of vulnerable people who have their own tenancies. And he or she acts a wee bit like a good neighbour in some respects, that they're there to offer a bit of light touch support to help people manage their tenancies. But as much as anything, they're there to help facilitate the peer support between the members. So people become interdependent on each other and share their skills and gifts, and also make a huge contribution to the communities that they're part of. And we've got a really great track record and history of the impact that networks have on their communities and what they give and contribute. So that's it in a nutshell. So it's very unique. There's no other service like it. The locality of the frontline worker is really important because we're looking for somebody who's really well connected to their communities, who's got a vested interest in their communities being a good place to live and work, and also that they're on hand to offer that flexible support to help people kind of manage their day-to-day lives. So again, as I said, quite a unique service.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and how long's Neighbourhood Networks been around?
We've actually got a big birthday coming up next May. We'll be 20 years old operationally next year. Mm-hmm. So we've got some plans. We're sort of thinking ahead of some events that we might be doing. It might be digitally, actually, depending on where we are in relation to the COVID-19 situation. But we don't want to let that anniversary pass by without a huge celebration of being in operation for 20 years. So.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got to be said, I remember when Carl Pole came up to Edinburgh to do that, because he obviously started keyring first, and when he was bringing it to the model up to Scotland and having all those early discussions way back when, and it doesn't seem like all that time ago, but time just flies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 9 local authorities later and something like 27 networks of support. So we've come a long way since those early days of Carol coming up to Scotland and sharing his incredible knowledge with us. We still have actually a very close relationship with Keyring. In fact, I was at a Zoom call with Karen Kirkpatrick, the director of Keyring, just last week. We were kind of sharing a wee bit of our respective journeys during the COVID experience. There's quite a lot of similarities in there and things that we can share together. So still very closely linked to Keyring. Really good, really good.
Okay. Can we just ask William about your experience of Neighbourhood Networks then? You said 3.5 years you've been involved in the network then, William.
Yes. It was actually I'm a member of the Bersall Baptist Church, and they were in the cafe, at a cafe on it, and Marie and Jan for Shots was there with a group of and she came over and asked me one time if I wanted to join it. And when I started, as maybe Heather will tell you, I never spoke to MD in the church hall if you were to speak to me. And now, as many says, can you shut me up? And sometimes now, I never spoke to MD at the beginning, And I started getting to know people in like Bells Hill and Motherwell, and then different networks, even going with to the Quality Street means, to Edinburgh and Glasgow and that as well, with different members for different areas and going to different events.
Yeah. And what about being a member of the board then as well? Because you just said you started that last year. How did you get to be on the Neighbourhood Networks board of directors?
Well, Marie McKean always said that I could do it, and I said I didn't want to do it at the start, and she said that's okay, and then I said I was ready to go join last year, and I did quite well actually. I've been told by the Ross is a chair, that I did quite well. My first time on the meeting, first time speaking up, I did well.
It's always a bit.
You did training as well. You did governance training with Helen.
I did. I did digital training in near the head office in Govan for 3 weeks. Learning things, different in computers and that. Different doing with stories and cartoons and things like that, and it was quite good. Able to help other people. That doesn't want to go into things with Zoom. I think it's too hard. And we started up a WhatsApp group, and now we do it ourselves, and then members do it ourselves. Did things every day, quizzes, karaoke's, group chats, and each members took a different day to do things. I did a quiz on a Wednesday, different day every day. At the start of the lockdown.
Yeah, because obviously it's a bit daunting when you're starting to take on new responsibilities for anyone, but particularly during this current time, I would think, because you've got to get used to a whole other set of things as well in terms of talking to people, just like you're doing with us just now over the computer and all the technology that's involved. Yeah. And what has it meant for Neighbourhood Networks generally, Heather, in terms of being able to keep, because obviously lots of the things that those community living workers would have done have had to adjust and change?
I mean, it's been just a huge learning curve. I mean, if you've had other guests, I'm sure they'll say exactly the same thing. And I think I was thinking, sort of reflecting on, preparing for this discussion today and thinking about that week in March where we were getting ready to go into lockdown, and it's probably the most intense experience of my sort of professional life. Just what does this mean? And we were kind of running about trying to get devices for people and have things set up. And in many respects, we were very lucky because we had benefited from some grant monies to develop digital champions in the organisation. So we'd done quite a bit of training pre-Christmas last year. So we kind of had sowed the seeds, if you like, around the digital work. So it was like a kind of a running around at the last minute, just trying to make sure we had as many devices out there to people that needed it. And then very quickly, people adjusted, I think, to the new reality. Our community living workers have really embraced the technology. They see it as that kind of vital way for people to keep together. They've kept together themselves as a group of frontline staff. They have a regular forum where they meet up by Zoom. Now, we have networks from North Ayrshire to East Lothian, so we're geographically really spread. And if people have realised that things like Zoom are a godsend to keep people connected. I'm just seeing your question from Amanda. No, we don't have neighbour networks active in Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire, sadly. But we're always open to suggestions of going in other places. But yes, so it's been a huge learning curve. It's also created wonderful opportunities for us and networks, and we've met new people who can help us deliver different types of training to people. We've got mindfulness, we've got a yoga instructor, with one of our community lab workers we've discovered is a fantastic exercise coach. Jo does our exercises on a Tuesday morning. I don't know, William, if you take part in that, if that's your scene, but she does an exercise class every Tuesday morning. In fact, she was on yesterday live from the North Coast 500, the journey up north. So she actually did a live exercise class from a beach somewhere up in the beautiful Highlands of Scotland. So we have learnt so many things and met so many people and learnt new skills about ourselves. And William, you're a fantastic example of somebody who's just thriving on the digital stuff. And we've got lots of other examples of a man, one of our members in Dumbarton, a man in his 60s who was quite kind of resistant to even getting a smartphone and things, but I'll take one. And now he's WhatsApping his sister in Canada every week. He's reconnecting with his family in Canada. We're seeing that part of it as a silver lining to the kind of dreadful circumstances that we find ourselves in. And it's an amazing way of developing skills. And it's not something that we're ever going to go back on. It's always something we're going to continue to develop and progress. And we've had great fun along the way. William, did you take part in the Supathon?
No.
I
don't. I'm not confident at cooking on my own. Okay, under supervision, but not on my own in the house. I'm on my own in the house. In fact, it's a year ago today, my mum died. And I've never cooked for myself, just microwave or oven cook. But never cooked from scratch on my own. But I did a course in the church hall, and just before lockdown, we're in the middle of doing a course with a girl called Emma. Hygiene and all that, and that was just before the lockdown started. We're doing that as well.
But that's that thing about doing it at your own pace, isn't it? I mean, you've learned lots of new skills and you've worked on lots of stuff. So maybe that'll be another thing that you work on next. That somebody could do it over Zoom with you. A bit of supervised learning. That is quite. It is one of the quite exciting things. The way that we've been able to adjust things. I've done some person-centered plans with people where usually when you physically go to do some work with people, you've only got that time because you've travelled and you've set that time up. What we've been able to do is drip feed in shorter times of getting to know people digitally, so there's not that anxiety. So you're not going into the room and there's this getting to know folk. And I think, for new staff as well, that, for your first day, the ability to be able to do that is something that we wouldn't have thought about doing before all this, isn't it? I'm just wondering if there's anything else with your focus on community that you can think of that you're going to continue, that's going to help with your focus on that neighbourhood and that local focus with the digital side of it, beyond lockdown.
We've certainly expanded our networks of people that benefit from the some of the digital activities. So some of our stuff is kind of like Facebook Live. We use kind of different formats to include people, appropriately. So for example, our Shortcut Chef is doing kind of Facebook Live feeds for that. So that's kind of open up to anybody who really wants to take part in it. It's got the potential to do that. So we're always about trying to open our doors, and that's our whole remit. And we've been trying to think about how we do that with our digital activities. It still keeps people safe, but at the same time, where appropriate and possible, we open up our doors. So one of the things that we do on Mondays, we do like a bingo session. And that's opened up to kind of family members and things as well of our members, and other things that are a bit more out in the public domain. So Absolutely. We want to carry on that work and focus.
Are there any things that you've tried, any other things that you've tried differently, William, during this last little period?
Well, I was going to say on the bingo here, so on the bingo, it used to be karaoke on a Friday. It's changed its time now. I got up to shots on a Friday to a cut through Neighbourhood Networks. It's a healthy living centre, and they've changed the time to 1 o'clock, so I can't go on that now. A lot of the young ones in North Lancashire want to carry on after they work, even with the things they're doing in digital, with Zoom. Well, not with WhatsApp and that, but not so much Zoom because they can't go on yet. They want to stick with WhatsApp even after they go back to normal. What they're doing, they're enjoying it that much. Speaking to people on WhatsApp and doing the things they're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got a question. We've got a couple of points here from Ashley and Amanda, just about that whole thing about trying to sort things out. It's a bit weird to start with, but and that Amanda's saying as well about that bizarre feeling, thinking can't imagine about going back to how things were. So, and I think that we don't want people to be scared that ever going back, but there's that thing of this can add things as well, can't it? Because some people who were rural, who were never, who was a massive deal to get to a lot of things, have been included just as easily as if you were right next door. So
yeah, and like you said, Heather, I mean that man who's talking to his sister in Canada, that would never have happened, would it?
Nope, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So we need to tap into that. I think one of the challenges as for us going ahead is actually helping all our members to be digitally included, because we're still to go with that. I mean, and one of the things is it's just sometimes confidence for people. So people, like yourself, William, you're a fantastic role model for the difference being digitally connected makes. And we want to do more work with our digital champions, for example, to kind of bang the drum of being connected and the difference it can make. So that's a big piece of work for us going forward, and something as an organisation we want to develop a bit of a strategy on about how we're going to tackle it. For example, we did a newsletter. We've got the members' newsletters we've been producing for many, many years. And we did one in the summer that was electronic, but it was also a paper copy, and it was all about digital inclusion. And we wanted to make sure that people who hadn't hooked up, been able to hook up so far, got a paper copy of those stories so they could read and hear about the potential difference it makes. So there's still a lot of work to do, but it's definitely something we've got our sights on.
Okay, and do you want to just tell us a little bit about the board? Because obviously William is involved formally as a member of the board. So just tell us a bit about your board and how that works and how it's made up then.
Okay, so we have an even split on our board of members who have joined the board who've experienced the service at some point, and also other volunteers from kind of different walks of life and different skills and experiences. And what we do is we usually have an election every year following a governance training where our members put themselves forward to be elected onto the board. It's quite can be a competitive process because there's only usually one place every year. We've had some exceptions in that recently, but usually only one place a year. But what we do is we always have a focus in the governance training about this isn't just a skill you could use for Neighbourhood Networks. This is a skill that you could use out in your community. You could go on to become a board member for another community organisation. So we've had members, for example, who didn't make it onto the Neighbourhood Networks board, but have used the experience to become board members elsewhere. So we invest a lot in the kind of training. And then once we have people have been appointed to the board, they buddy up together with another trustee to just help people's experience of being on the board, make it run a bit more smoothly. People can share their experiences with one another. They can help each other to speak up. They prepare in advance for meetings together. So, William, I know your buddy's not very well at the moment, so you and I met up in preparation for the last board meeting. But normally what would happen is board members would get together in their buddies and prep for the meeting, come along together, prepare their questions, and a bit of a check-in after to see how it's gone. So there's a lot of we put a lot of store in that so that people can really be fully included and get the most out of the experience.
And William, what's been the best bit about being on the board for you? What are the things that you've enjoyed the most?
Well, I've been able to. I've never done this with this before. I've had me from my community living work, encouraging me and have faith in me to do it. I've never said it, never done it a million years, And actually, last year, I spoke at Stirling University to 30 or 40 people. Did a wee talk with Ross Watson, who's the chair. He spoke first, and then I spoke. And the night before, I texted Marine McCool and said, I didn't let her down. I let Neighbourhood Networks down. She said, you won't, you'll be fine. And I was, everybody actually came to me after and said that how well I done. That was in front of about 35, 40 people.
Yeah, so that's quite a big thing to do then, isn't it?
I've never done it, as I say, hadn't been encouraging me, Marie, my community living work, encouraging saying you can do it, and actually to understand there's actually a soul in my community worker, so I knew her before Neighbourhood Networks anyway. Went to school with her, so she knows me, and read me out books. She said, if I can say to you, maybe I'm fine. She said, no, she knows the way I talk. I'm not feeling maybe up to it. I can say I'm feeling fine. She said, no,
so somebody you can be honest with and that you can trust. That's really important, isn't it? And take your time
I've actually spoken about things before, things I've not told anybody else, that I'll be able to talk to Marie about in confidence. I know it won't go any further, and I trust her. Yeah.
Now that's so important. And one of the things we've noticed in a lot of social care providers that I've really struggled with is that consistency, the mobility, the amount of movement within the social care workforce. I mean, going back to when I first started, there was a lot more stability. Folks stayed in places and worked with folk and developed relationships for years. And I've noticed that the real difference about that is much harder to keep, to keep those relationships as good if you've got a high turnover of staff. And that's a real challenge. I don't know how well you feel you're doing with reducing that turnover with your locality-based sort of neighbourhood-based model.
I would say that recruitment has been a challenge. Like we've been affected by the sector just like everybody else. So it's harder and harder to recruit. But again, I think our turnover, I would say, is relatively low. I think what we've learned a lot, especially over the last year, of how to really invest in our staff. And we think we've done an awful lot of work on induction so that we are not overloading people when they first start. So we've had to really kind of change and adapt the way we do things to try and keep people and encourage them to stay on board, because it can be quite a daunting thought to come and work for Neighbourhood Networks. There's so many to the job, and there's technology now and everything. So it's an awful lot to ask at times. But if we kind of take our time and really support people through induction, we reckon that we will hold on to people. And we've got some staff members that have been around for years and years and years. So the proof of the pudding. But we can't be complacent about it. And there's no question that recruitment is tougher. It's definitely tougher and tougher. So,
but I guess although you're saying it's a big ask, I think for a lot of folk who want to do it as a kind of a career rather than just as a fill-in for a couple of years, between other stuff. I think what people are looking for is that consistency, is that chance to actually, to really get engaged in somebody's life and to see folk develop over years rather than be, bouncing about from one place to another.
The challenge is to get people just to the point where they're comfortable with the role and to get them to hang on through the bits of induction that feel a bit uncertain or perhaps a bit overwhelming, and just support people to kind of come through the other side of that, and then we tend to keep people. So but I said we've learned a lot over the last kind of couple of years around our induction, and we're putting an awful lot of thought into that, about how we do that so that people have the tools that they need, and they're not there's not too much pressure put on people to start with. So
I was thinking just about looking forward here now. So are you just sharing?
Well, it was Ashley saying. So I think she must be trying to say about that consistency, about trying to just have a couple of different people. But But if it was, it's hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
It's one of the big
I
challenges.
think that's a comment about the challenge of trying to get people just at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. And the
Mhm.
false economy of just keeping churning through people, sometimes paying not being able to pay people enough, and then just keeping churning, and it's just too destructive. Anyway, sorry, Keith.
No, that's all right. It's just, I mean, I was just pointing out Ashley's comments there, because the next bit is really just saying about. Ashley's just posted another comment there, really just about saying that really she doesn't want to have too many people either working with her. So we're trying to look to get a consistent team with a small number of people, but that's really quite challenging to be able to do that. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I was just going to ask you about looking forward, really. Just what are you hoping? What are your hopes for the future for Neighbourhood Networks as eventually when things begin to get back to some sort of a different normality, and hopefully we'll remember all the things that we think have worked well here as well. But so what are your hopes for the future for Neighbourhood Networks?
Well, I think there's an opportunity for us to really kind of sell ourselves at the moment about the kind of difference we've managed to make, and the flexibility of what we do and the responsiveness of what we do because of the model and the local worker and the fact that we're not building based and things. So I think there's an opportunity to really kind of bed our work in, certainly across the local authorities we're in, but obviously maybe go a wee bit, expand out those boundaries too. I think we want to definitely develop the digital work and the digital connection stuff. We also, I think, see, particularly with younger people coming through the system, young people in transition, we see quite significant opportunities there to help people have a different experience of social care and have much more aspirations and outcomes that they want to drive towards achieving, because we're all about achieving outcomes. And we also have a focus that we want to think about travel training and supporting young people to learn to travel independently, because when we come out the other side of COVID, that's the key to an independent life. And we think we're quite well geared up to provide support to people to learn real journeys in real times and really build their confidence and their skills to have a fully independent life. So we're very hopeful at the moment, despite the awful circumstances. And we've had our tragedies at the beginning of the experience too. We lost a member, one of our members in West Barnshire passed away, Michael Derrick. So it was very sobering and very upsetting. But really, on the back of everything that we've been through, we want to keep moving forward and keep developing our organisation and our skills. So.
Okay, thanks, Heather. Yeah, William, what are the other things that you are looking forward to?
We're just sort of just meeting up the other day. You can only meet up with so many people at a time now, and you can only do so much on Zoom. But it's better actually meeting up with people than personally than actually with Zoom. But it's going to be with Zoom probably for a while to come. Just basically meeting, doing what we did before. Just able to do what we did before, which we can't do at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're still doing at the moment is we're still, where it's safe, is encouraging people to meet up as peers, but safe, socially distanced, kind of 2 meters apart, and people going for walks in the park together and getting fresh air, or where it's appropriate, kind of going for coffee or lunch together. So there's still, I know we're focused a lot in this interview about the digital stuff, but we're still there pushing that and helping people to get outside in the fresh air and have a life outside of their houses, because that's incredibly important for people's mental well-being. So
absolutely,
we'll continue right now. We'll see what Nicola says today, but we will continue to support that as much as we can, particularly over the winter months when we know that vitamin D and fresh air is all the more important. So that will also continue.
So. Yeah. So looking at the ways that you can continue to have some socially distanced and safe contact with people that allows people to be out, because it is so important, isn't it, to be able to get out and to keep the most sense of normality that you can within your life in these very uncertain and changing times as well. That's the other thing, isn't it? It's about everything's changing all the time, as we've reflected on so many times over these last however many weeks we've been doing these webinar Wednesdays as well.
I know.
Which is quite a lot.
And just as an indicator of the changing times, we've got a good evening from Kidapawan City National High School. So so we've got, talking of transitions and folk leaving schools, we've got folk logging in from different parts of the world. So that's really interesting to share ideas and connections. And I guess some of the stuff we've done with the No Labels, No Walls stuff has looked at some of the stuff, across Europe, America, Asia, lots of different parts of the world, and just explore what are the similarities and what can we learn from one another, how can we support each other, and how can we connect better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether I was just going to say, I mean, obviously it is always important to learn and share from as many different people as we can, and to keep our connections as strong and to increase our connections. So, and I mean, essentially that's what Neighbourhood Networks is all about, isn't it? People being connected in their own places.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And sharing and as you said earlier on, really, so I'm just going to emphasize what you said, sharing their gifts and skills with each other.
Yeah,
we've all got things, because everybody in their lives has got things that they bring and things that they need from others around about them. So that's the beauty. That's the essential part of Neighbourhood Networks, isn't it? Emphasizing those aspects.
And COVID-19 doesn't change that, and there's still been opportunities for people to share skills with one another. I mean, William, in your networks, you've had some fantastic offers, and you've helped other people to use WhatsApp, and you've shared your experience of that, which had made such a difference to people. So that carries on regardless.
Yeah. Also, I can maybe take one of the head office now. I can take them in. I went in first with Marie, and then when Ross took me in, now I can do it on my own. I know where to go now. I can take people into the head office if I ever want to go in. And they train to Central with Bellshill and then get a bus. It takes right to, and so I can do that now.
Yep. So you're okay doing that? You were going sideways there, as William.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So we're at 47 minutes, and we always try and finish this around about this time. So just any final comments that you'd like to make, Heather? First of all, any final comments?
I'd just kind of to encourage people to not be scared of technology. I know it doesn't always work smoothly. It's got its hiccups, but not to be scared of it, and to see it as an opportunity, I think, to widen your connections and have things to do and to make friends.
Yeah. And William, anything that you'd like to share with us as a final comment?
Just as I say, I wouldn't have done any of this even for my community worker, I wouldn't have the courage to do it, on my own, and all the support I get, from other members and that as well.
Yeah, so really everybody needs a little bit of help in their life, and as Alistair was saying, it's really important that we're able to get help from people who can build a relationship and that we can begin to trust. So that sounds like that's what's happened with you and your community.
One of the members in Bellshill, she doesn't want to go anywhere now, too scared to go anywhere, but want to go for a walk, that's okay, but not go anywhere, a restaurant or pubs or that, or any like that, any shops. Just feels it's because her sister's shielding now, and she doesn't want to go into anywhere she might catch it,
Yeah.
And one of the other members, I said to him, that I would go in and get whatever he wanted, sometime, if he didn't want to go in, I want to go in and get whatever it was and come back out, and I was okay with going into places, but some members are not.
Yeah. So that's it, isn't it? Just helping each other out in those best ways you can. Yep. Alistair, any final comments?
Just on that whole connecting and learning from one another and the digital stuff that we've got starting this Saturday. A few of us, it is part of the Citizen Network sort of stuff, again, partly through the No Labels, No Walls. There's a few of us doing a sort of a reflective practice sort of retreat thing through facilitated by Varun from Manavidea, and we'll be looking at how we connect to one another, where we're focusing on, and it's going to be a bit of yoga, a bit of self-reflection, a bit of connecting, just a wee bit on a Saturday morning, 11:30. On Zoom, second Saturday of every month. So I'll maybe see if we could share it on the In Control site as well. So it's, you know, everybody's welcome. It's an inclusive space. So so it's just another one of these examples of where we can stay and keep connected with kind of a global group who are all interested in that whole citizenship and just confidence and just all the good stuff, the human rights. Yep.
Okay, that's great. And obviously, if anybody, you can share it you're going to share it, Alistair, anyway, but if anybody wants to contact you directly, they can contact you through the info at In Control Scotland. And June, as she always does at the end, is commenting and saying a massive thanks to you, to our lovely guests, Heather and William, and also to me and you, Alistair, as well. And and we will be back next week with our next webinar Wednesday.
Yes, and we're still looking for guests as well. We're still looking to come on as well.
Yeah. And you'll be back on Friday at 1 o'clock normally for the Feel Good Friday. If anybody wants to find out about how to join that, just get in touch with us as well. So thank you. Thank you to Heather. Thank you to William. Thank you to everybody who's been watching us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne.